I had 30 seconds before the main course arrived, and 3 bullets found their way into his spine. My fingers trembled as I twisted the cork from the Pinot Noir, the bottle slick with condensation and my own sweat. The paper receipt in my apron pocket felt like it weighed 10 pounds. Each of the 7 words I'd scrawled across it, burning through the fabric into my ribs. Around me, the obsidian room pulsed with the kind of luxury that made your teeth ache. Baccarat crystal catching candlelight, the whisper of silk napkins against marble tabletops, murmured conversations in languages I'd never learned. Beyond the windows, Lake Michigan stretched black and infinite under Chicago's winter sky, but inside, the air was thick, honey-slow, suffocating. I moved toward table 4 like I was walking underwater. Kang Min Lee sat facing the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city's skyline framing him like a crown of steel and glass. He looked like violence wrapped in cashmere. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair styled with precision. A charcoal suit that probably cost more than my mother's funeral. But it was his neck that marked him, intricate tattoos crawling up from his collar, dark ink against golden skin, a visual confession of exactly who and what he was. His hand rested on the white tablecloth, a platinum watch catching the light, fingers utterly still. Predators don't fidget. Across from him, the woman in the silver dress leaned forward, her diamond earrings throwing sparks across her phone screen. She looked captivated by her device, her red nails tapping out a message. She looked like someone waiting for dessert. She wasn't. 17 minutes ago, I'd watched her order his execution. The service hallway behind the obsidian room's kitchen wasn't glamorous. Exposed pipes, concrete floors, the industrial hum of walk-in freezers. I ducked back there to catch my breath, to let the panic attack I'd been holding at bay for 3 hours finally crack through. My brother's voice still echoed in my head from this morning's call. Michele, they're giving me until Friday. If I don't have the money. He hadn't finished the sentence. He hadn't needed to. I'd pressed my forehead against the cold metal of the ice machine, trying to remember how to breathe, when I heard her voice. English, clipped and cold, drifting from the private dining alcove around the corner. Confirmed. Table 4, facing the windows. Clean sightline from the kitchen entrance. I froze, my hand still on the ice machine door. 3 shooters positioned. 1 exits through the back. 2 create the crossfire. Timing on the main course approximately 18 minutes. A pause. Then lower, almost amused. Make it look like a robbery gone wrong. Chicago's full of them. My heart stopped, then slammed back to life, hammering against my ribs so hard I thought she'd hear it. Footsteps. Heels clicking toward my hiding spot. I slipped behind a rack of chef coats, pressing myself into the shadows, praying the dim emergency lighting would swallow me whole. Through the gap in the hanging whites, I saw her tall, elegant, wrapped in that silver dress that shimmered like fish scales, dark hair swept into an effortless updo, diamond earrings that probably cost more than my entire year's salary. She paused, checking her reflection in the polished steel of the kitchen door, adjusting her lipstick. She smiled at herself. Then she walked back into the dining room, back to table 4, back to the man she'd just condemned to death. I stood there for 10 seconds, 20, 30, waiting for my lungs to remember their job. When I finally stepped back onto the dining room floor, my brain was moving at light speed. Table 4, facing the windows. 3 shooters, kitchen entrance, main course in 18 minutes, now 16. I scanned the restaurant with new eyes, my serving tray pressed against my chest like body armor. 2 men near the kitchen doors. Dark suits, backs to the wall, menus unopened for the past 20 minutes. One kept adjusting his jacket, his hand disappearing inside every few seconds, checking something. The 3rd man stood at the bar, nursing an old-fashioned he hadn't actually tasted, his eyes tracking table 4 inches the mirrored backsplash. My stomach turned to ice. I looked back at Kang Min Lee, watching him laugh at something the woman said, completely oblivious that the person touching his arm had just greenlit his murder. That in less than 15 minutes, when the Dover sole and truffle risotto hit the table and everyone's attention shifted to the theatrical plating, 3 men were going to pump him full of bullets and walk out like ghosts. I could leave, call in sick, let my shift manager handle the rest of the night. Let whatever was about to happen just happen. Men like Kang Min Lee didn't end up in restaurants like this by being good. He'd built his empire on bodies. Maybe he'd earned this. But then I thought about my father, 5 years in the ground, who'd taught me that mercy wasn't about deserving. I thought about my brother, stupid and desperate and drowning. I thought about every choice that had led me to this moment, serving wine to monsters while my own life crumbled. I thought, I can't just watch someone die. So I grabbed a pen from my apron, pulled out a blank receipt, and wrote 7 words that would either save us both or kill us together. My reflection in the wine glasses looked skeletal as I approached table 4. Each step stretched into eternity. I was hyper-aware of everything, the polyester of my vest scratching against my collarbones, the squeak of my non-slip shoes on marble, the way the woman's perfume smelled like gardenias and gunpowder. "Your Pinot Noir, sir." My voice came out steady, professional, like I hadn't just overheard a murder plot, like my hands weren't shaking hard enough to shatter crystal. I positioned the bottle above his glass, and then I did what every server knows you never, ever do. I let it slip. The wine hit the white tablecloth in a crimson explosion, splashing across plates, glasses, the woman's silver dress. She gasped, jerking back. Kang Min Lee didn't flinch. He just watched me with those dark, calculating eyes that had seen through prettier lies than mine. "I'm so sorry." I grabbed napkins, dabbing frantically at the spreading stain, my movements deliberately clumsy, chaotic. "I'm so sorry. Let me—" And in the controlled chaos, in the split second when the woman was focused on her ruined dress and the busboy was rushing over with towels, I pressed the folded receipt into Kang's palm, our eyes locked, his hand closed around the paper. For half a heartbeat, the world stopped. His gaze pinned me in place, not cold, but absolutely lethal. The kind of look that stripped away skin and bone and saw straight into your survival instincts. "Read it," I mouthed. "Please." The woman was standing now, wine dripping from her hemline, fury cracking through her polished facade. "This is unacceptable. I want—" "It's fine." Kang's voice cut through her complaint like a blade through silk. He unfolded the receipt beneath the table, his expression never changing. Those dark eyes scanned my handwriting. "You've been sold out." Kitchen staff armed. His jaw tightened, barely perceptible. A tell so subtle you'd miss it if you weren't looking for it. He knew. Kang set the receipt down carefully, then looked at the woman. Really looked at her. "Actually, darling, I'm not very hungry anymore." She blinked, her anger shifting to confusion. "What?" "Min. We just ordered—" I said I'm not hungry. He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced precision. When he spoke again, his voice was silk over steel. "In fact, I think we should leave. Now." "That's ridiculous. We haven't even—" His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to communicate. I wasn't asking. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. The woman's face cycled through emotions, confusion, fear, calculation before settling on forced compliance. "Of course. Whatever you want." But as Kang moved to guide her toward the exit, the kitchen doors swung open. The sous chef stepped out, white coat pristine, hand inside his jacket. Our eyes met across the dining room. His hand started to move, and Kang Min Lee, who'd survived a decade in Chicago's underworld by trusting his instincts, grabbed my wrist and pulled me behind him just as the first gunshot shattered the crystal chandelier above table 4. The obsidian room erupted into screaming chaos, and I realized, with perfect clarity, that I'd just started a war. Subscribe to see how this unfolds and comment where you're watching from. I will love to say hello to you just to know how far our story is going. The world exploded into glass and screaming. The chandelier above table 4 detonated in a shower of crystal, shards raining down like diamond snow. Diners hit the floor, tables overturned. Someone's date night transformed into a nightmare in the space between heartbeats. The sous chef, who I'd seen prepping duck confit an hour ago, stood in the kitchen doorway with a submachine gun that looked like it had been pulled straight from a war zone. Kang moved like liquid violence. He didn't hesitate, didn't freeze, Didn't waste a single second on shock. His hand was already on the edge of table 4, flipping it with a strength that seemed impossible for one man. The marble top crashed onto its side, creating a barrier between us and the kitchen doors. Wine glasses shattered. Plates exploded. The woman in the silver dress screamed, stumbling backward in her Louboutins. "Get down!" Kang's voice was a whip crack of authority. The first burst of gunfire chewed through the air, where we'd been standing half a second ago. The white leather booth exploded in tufts of stuffing. Bullets punched through the overturned table, through the wall behind us, through the fantasy that we were safe. I dropped to the floor, my hands over my head, every instinct screaming at me to become as small as possible. The marble floor was cold against my cheek. I could smell gun smoke mixing with expensive perfume and terror. Kang was beside me, his hand gripping my wrist like a vice. The back exits. Where are they? What? You work here. Back exits. Now. My brain stuttered, trying to process through the adrenaline flooding my system. Through the kitchen, left past the walk-in freezers. Service corridor leads to the loading dock. Another burst of gunfire. The mirror behind the bar exploded, 1,000 reflected images of chaos shattering into nothing. Patrons were crawling toward the main entrance, but the 2 men who'd been stationed near the kitchen had cut off that route, guns drawn, professional and terrifyingly calm. The woman in silver was still standing, frozen in shock or calculation, I couldn't tell which. Kang looked at her, and something passed across his face. Not love, not even affection, just a cold, surgical assessment. "You should run, darling," he said, his voice flat. "They're not here for you." She didn't need to be told twice. She bolted for the main entrance, diamond earrings catching the emergency lights now strobing through the restaurant. Whether she made it out or not, I never found out. Kang pulled me to my feet with one hand, the other reaching inside his jacket to produce a gun I hadn't known he was carrying. Of course he was carrying. Men like him always were. "Move, now," I ran. We sprinted through the dining room in a crouch, using overturned tables as cover. Behind us, the fake sous chef was shouting in what sounded like Russian, coordinating with his partners. I heard the bartender screaming, heard the distinctive crack of gunfire, heard my own heartbeat hammering so loud it drowned out everything else. The kitchen doors swung open under my shoulder, and we crashed into the controlled chaos of the obsidian rooms back of house. The real kitchen staff, the ones I worked with, joked with, complained about tips with, were pressed against the walls, hands up, faces white with terror. A man in a server's uniform I'd never seen before stood guard with a pistol. He turned when we burst through. Kang shot him without breaking stride. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, the muzzle flash painting the stainless steel surfaces in stark relief. The fake server went down, his gun clattering across the tile floor. I stumbled, my shoe slipping in something I didn't want to identify, but Kang's grip on my wrist kept me upright. Freezers. Which way? I pointed with my free hand, and we were moving again, past the line cooks still frozen at their stations, past the expeditor's window, past the walk-in refrigerators humming their industrial song. The service corridor stretched ahead, lit by flickering fluorescents that made everything look like a horror movie. Behind us, footsteps pounded, voices shouted. The shooters were coming. We hit the corridor at a dead run. My lungs burned, my legs screamed. The exit sign at the end glowed red, promising salvation or damnation. I wasn't sure which anymore. Kang released my wrist, spinning to fire 3 shots back the way we'd come. One of the fluorescent tubes exploded, plunging half the corridor into darkness. "Keep moving!" he barked. I slammed into the crash bar on the loading dock door, and it swung open onto Chicago's winter night. The cold hit like a fist, February wind cutting through my vest and button-down like they were tissue paper. The loading dock overlooked an alley, dumpsters on one side, a chain-link fence on the other, and a black Mercedes sedan idling with its lights off 20 feet away. "That's mine," Kang said, already moving toward it. We'd made it maybe 10 feet when the door behind us crashed open again, and the shooters poured out. The next 30 seconds were pure chaos. Kang returned fire, and I hit the ground behind a dumpster, my hands over my ears, the smell of rotting food mixing with cordite. Bullets sparked off metal. Glass shattered. Someone was screaming. Might have been me. The Mercedes's windows exploded, the driver's side door taking 3 rounds that punched through like angry fists. Kang dove behind the car's engine block, reloading with practiced efficiency that spoke of too much experience with exactly this situation. He fired again, and one of the shooters went down clutching his shoulder. But there were 3 of them, and they had better position, and we were pinned down in an alley with nowhere to go. "The car!" Kang shouted over the gunfire. "Can you drive?" "What? Can you fucking drive?" "Yes, but..." "Then get in." He laid down covering fire, and I scrambled around the car's front bumper, yanking open the passenger door or what was left of it. Safety glass rained into my lap as I climbed over the center console, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The keys were in the ignition. The engine was still running. Blood was spattered across the dashboard, and I tried very hard not to think about whose it was. Kang fired 3 more shots, then dove into the passenger seat, slamming the door. "Drive, now!" I threw the car into reverse and floored it. The Mercedes shot backward down the alley with the acceleration of a rocket, tires screaming, the shooters diving out of the way. I cranked the wheel, spinning us 180 degrees in a move I'd learned from too many action movies, then slammed it into drive and punched the accelerator. We rocketed out of the alley onto the street, weaving through late-night traffic, horns blaring. Someone's taxi nearly clipping our bumper. I took a corner too fast, the Mercedes's rear end fishtailing on ice I hadn't seen, and Kang braced himself against the dashboard without comment. "Where am I going?" My voice sounded foreign to my own ears, pitched too high, threaded with hysteria. "North. Lakeshore Drive." He was checking his gun, ejecting the magazine, examining it with clinical detachment. Then he pressed his other hand to his side, and when he pulled it away, his palm was dark with blood. My stomach dropped. "You're hit." "I'm aware. How bad? I've had worse." But his voice was tight, controlled in a way that suggested it was taking everything he had to keep it that way. "Just drive." I drove. Lakeshore Drive stretched ahead, the lake invisible in the darkness to our right, the city glittering to our left. I pushed the Mercedes up to 80, weaving between cars, checking the rearview mirror every 3 seconds for signs of pursuit. My hands were locked on the steering wheel, knuckles white, and I couldn't feel my fingers anymore from gripping too hard or from shock. I wasn't sure. Kang guided me through a series of turns, his directions clipped and precise despite the blood soaking through his shirt. We ended up in the Gold Coast, pulling into an underground garage beneath a high-rise that looked like it cost more per square foot than my entire neighborhood. "Park there." He pointed to a spot marked Private PH. I killed the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. My ears rang from the gunfire. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I looked at Kang, really looked at him, and saw the blood seeping between his fingers, the pallor beneath his golden skin, the way he was breathing too carefully. "You need a hospital." "No hospitals." He opened the door, swaying slightly as he stood. "They ask questions. Questions lead to police. Police lead to..." He cut himself off, jaw clenching. "Just help me upstairs." I shouldn't have. Every rational cell in my body screamed at me to run, to disappear into the night, to pretend the last hour had been a nightmare I could wake up from. But I got out of the car and let him lean on me, his weight solid and warm against my side, his blood soaking through my vest. We took a private elevator, Kang's bloody fingerprint on the biometric scanner granting us access. The ride up was silent, except for his labored breathing and my own hammering pulse. When the doors opened, we stepped into a penthouse that looked like it had been ripped from an architectural magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the lake and the city, minimalist furniture in blacks and grays, art on the walls that was probably worth more than my life. Everything was clean lines and controlled elegance, the kind of space that made you feel like your very presence was a stain on its perfection. Kang stumbled toward a leather couch, leaving a trail of blood drops on the white marble floor. "First aid kit," he managed. "Bathroom, medicine cabinet." I ran, my shoes slipping on marble, my reflection in the mirrored hallway a ghost of a woman I didn't recognize. The bathroom was all Italian tile and rain showers, And I found the first aid kit more extensive than any civilian had a right to own in a cabinet the size of a small closet. When I returned, Kang had stripped off his jacket and was working on his shirt, his movements slow and pained. The tattoos on his neck continued down. I saw now intricate patterns of ink covering his chest and shoulders, traditional Korean designs mixed with something more modern, more personal. And there, just below his ribs on the left side, a bullet wound leaked blood across his skin. "Sit down before you fall down," I said, dropping to my knees beside the couch. He didn't argue. I'd never treated a gunshot wound before. I'd taken a semester of pre-nursing before my father died and the money ran out, but that had been textbooks and theory, not real blood and real flesh and real bullets. My hands shook as I opened the kit, finding gauze and antiseptic and supplies I didn't have names for. "It went through," Kang said, his voice strained. "Exit wound in the back. Just needs to be cleaned and dressed." "Just," I repeated numbly. I cleaned the wound as gently as I could while he sat rigid, every muscle locked against the pain. He didn't make a sound, didn't flinch, just stared at me with those dark, calculating eyes while I worked, like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't quite add up. "Why?" he finally asked, my hands stilled. "Why what? Why warn me? You didn't know me. You had no stake in whether I lived or died." His jaw clenched as I pressed gauze to the exit wound. "So why risk your life for mine?" I didn't have a good answer. I couldn't just let you die. People die all the time, not in front of me, not when I could stop it. Something flickered across his face, too quick to identify. Pain, maybe. Or something closer to curiosity. That's either very noble or very stupid. Can't it be both? The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Then his hand shot out, gripping my wrist with bruising force, and suddenly there was a gun pressed against my temple. The cold metal kissed my skin, and every drop of blood in my body turned to ice. "Tell me the truth," Kang said, his voice deadly calm. "Who sent you?" "No one sent me. I already told you." "Bullshit." He cocked the hammer, the click impossibly loud in the silent penthouse. "That warning was too convenient. Too perfect. You're either with them or you're the best actress I've ever met." "I'm a waitress." The words came out strangled, pitched too high. I serve wine and clear plates and smile at people who treat me like furniture. That's it. That's all I am. "Then how did you know?" "I told you." I heard her on the phone. "Which you conveniently overheard how." I was in the service hallway, and she was making the call near the private dining alcove. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I sucked in a breath, trying to steady my voice. "Please, I swear to God, no one sent me. I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time." His eyes searched mine, looking for the lie, the crack, the tell. The gun didn't waver. "If you're going to kill me, just do it," I whispered. "But I'm telling you the truth." I heard her coordinating the hit. "I saw the men positioned around the restaurant. I saw you sitting there completely unaware that you were about to die, and my voice broke. I couldn't just walk away." The silence stretched. Outside, Chicago glittered, oblivious to the small drama playing out 40 stories above the street. Kang's finger rested on the trigger, and I wondered if this was how I died. Not in a hail of bullets during the escape, but here, in this pristine penthouse, because a monster didn't believe in mercy. Then he lowered the gun. "The woman," he said. "The one at the table. Describe her." I blinked, my pulse still hammering. Silver dress, dark hair, diamond earrings. I don't know her name. She wasn't a regular. "I know who she was." His voice was flat, empty. "What I want to know is what you heard her say." "Exactly." So I told him. Every word I could remember, every detail from the hallway, the coordination, the timing, the positions of the shooters. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable, the gun now resting on his thigh like it belonged there. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "She was a decoy," he finally said. "What?" "The woman. She was there to keep my attention, to make sure I was looking at her instead of the perimeter." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Smart. Use my own arrogance against me. I thought I was meeting an asset, someone who wanted to negotiate. Instead, I walked into a fucking execution. Who would want you dead? Shorter list would be who doesn't. He set the gun on the coffee table, wincing as the movement pulled at his wound. I run the largest Korean organization in the Midwest. I've stepped on a lot of toes getting here. Made a lot of enemies. Could be the Russians, the Italians, the Chinese. Hell, could be one of my own people looking to move up. The casual way he talked about it, about murder and betrayal and criminal empire, made my stomach turn. This was the world I'd stumbled into, the world I'd saved him from, which meant I was now part of it whether I wanted to be or not. I should go, I said, standing up. My legs felt like water. You're patched up. You don't need me anymore. Sit down. It wasn't a request. I sat. Kang leaned back against the couch, his dark eyes never leaving my face. You saved my life tonight. That makes you valuable. It also makes you a liability. I won't tell anyone. I'll forget this ever happened. You can't forget. And they know your face. He gestured vaguely toward the windows, toward the city, toward the men who'd tried to kill him. You think they didn't notice the waitress who warned me? You think they're just going to let that slide? Ice settled in my stomach. They don't know who I am. They will. They'll pull the restaurant's employment records. They'll find your address, and then they'll tie up that loose end. He paused, letting that sink in. You can't go home, Michelle Cruz. Hearing my name in his mouth, my full name, which meant he'd read my name tag, had cataloged it, had filed it away, made this all suddenly, horrifyingly real. What am I supposed to do? My voice came out small, defeated. Stay here. Stay alive. Help me figure out who's behind this. He studied me with an intensity that felt like being dissected. You need money, don't you? I went still. How did you... You work 2 jobs. I saw the calluses on your hands, the bags under your eyes. You're running from something, or toward something. Either way, you're desperate. His voice softened, just slightly. Everyone who works at the Obsidian Room is... No one takes that job for the joy of serving overpriced wine to assholes like me. I wanted to argue, but he was right. God, he was right. My brother, I heard myself say. He owes money to some very bad people. He stole from the wrong crew, and now they're coming to collect, if he doesn't pay by Friday. I couldn't finish the sentence. How much? 50,000. Kang didn't even blink. I'll buy the debt. What? Your brother's debt. I'll pay it off. Consider it compensation for saving my life. He shifted, pain flickering across his face. In exchange, you stay here until we find who orchestrated tonight. You help me decrypt whatever information you remember from that phone call. And you don't leave this penthouse without my permission. It was a cage. A gilded, beautiful cage. But a cage nonetheless. And if I say no, then you walk out that door, and I give you 12 hours before they find you. His expression was almost sympathetic. I'm not the villain here, Michele. I'm offering you protection, safety, and enough money to save your brother's life. All you have to do is stay. I looked around the penthouse, at the luxury I'd only ever glimpsed through restaurant windows, at the floor-to-ceiling views of a city that had chewed me up and spit me out more times than I could count, at the man bleeding on the couch, dangerous and damaged and offering me the one thing I'd been killing myself to earn. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll stay. Something in his expression shifted. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction. He nodded once, then closed his eyes. Exhaustion finally catching up to him. Guest room is down the hall. Second door on the right. Take whatever you need from the closet. His voice was fading, pain and blood loss dragging him under. We'll talk more in the morning. I stood, wrapping my arms around myself, still wearing my wine-stained vest and work shirt. Kang? Thank you. He opened one eye. Don't thank me yet. You don't know what you've agreed to. I spent that first night wide awake, staring at the ceiling of a bedroom that was bigger than my entire apartment. The sheets were Egyptian cotton. The mattress was probably worth more than my car. And I was a prisoner, I realized. A voluntary prisoner, but a prisoner nonetheless. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and explored. The penthouse was a study in controlled elegance, everything in its place. Nothing personal, nothing that revealed who Kang Min Lee actually was beneath the tailored suits and neck tattoos. The kitchen was all marble and stainless steel. The living room held that leather couch and not much else. No photographs. No clutter. No evidence that a human being actually lived here. I found myself at the windows, looking out at Chicago sprawled below like a blanket of lights. Somewhere out there, my brother was sleeping in our mother's old house, unaware that I'd just traded my freedom for his debt. Somewhere out there, people were hunting for me, wanting me dead for the crime of being a witness. And somewhere in this penthouse, a wounded monster slept, trusting me not to slit his throat while he was vulnerable. The thought should have been tempting. It wasn't. The next day, Kang emerged from his room at noon, moving stiffly but upright. He'd changed into black pants and a white shirt, the collar open enough to show the edge of his tattoos. The wound had to be killing him, but his face gave nothing away. "You're still here," he observed. "Where else would I go?" Smart. He moved to the kitchen, started a coffee maker that probably cost more than my monthly rent. We have work to do. Work, it turned out, meant remembering everything I'd seen on that woman's phone. Kang set me up at the dining room table with paper and a pen, then sat across from me with his own laptop and a phone that looked like it could probably hack the Pentagon. "Close your eyes," he instructed. "Picture the phone screen. What did you see?" I closed my eyes, trying to pull up the memory. It felt like years ago instead of just last night. She was texting, multiple messages, some in English, some in Italian, maybe? I don't speak it well enough to be sure. What did the English one say? Confirmed. Table 4, facing the windows. Then something about clean sightline from the kitchen entrance. 3 shooters positioned. I paused, reaching for details. She said timing on the main course was approximately 18 minutes. What else? Any numbers? Codes? I frowned, digging deeper. There was. Wait. Before she started talking, I saw messages on the screen, like she was scrolling through a conversation. My eyes flew open. There were coordinates. I remember thinking they looked weird, like they were too specific for a regular address. Kang leaned forward, wincing slightly. "Do you remember them?" "Not exactly, but they were. 41 point something north, 87 point something west. Somewhere in Chicago. That's half the city." "I know. I'm sorry, I squeezed my eyes shut again, trying to force the memory into focus. Numbers. There had been numbers. 41.874, maybe, and 87.623. Kang was already typing. His fingers flew across the keyboard, and I watched his screen populate with maps, coordinates, satellite images. He zoomed in on a location near the docks, an industrial area I'd never been to. "This mean anything to you?" he asked, turning the laptop toward me. I studied the image. Warehouses, shipping containers, the kind of place where bad things happened out of sight. "No. Should it? It's one of my distribution points." His jaw tightened. "Or it was. If they knew about it, if they're using it for coordination." He pulled the laptop back, typing something else. "What time did you see those coordinates?" "Maybe 9:30? I went down to the wine cellar around 9:15, heard her on the phone by 9:20. More typing. Then Kang pulled up what looked like security footage, grainy and timestamp marked. He scrolled through until he found 9:30 last night. The warehouse was empty. Or it looked empty, until shapes moved in the shadows. Men, maybe 6 or 7 of them, loading something into trucks, moving with purpose, with coordination. Kang's expression went cold. They were pulling product out, right under my fucking nose. What does that mean? It means someone on my end gave them access, told them the security codes, the patrol schedules. He slammed the laptop shut. It means I have a traitor. The word hung in the air between us. Over the next 3 days, I learned to live in the gilded cage. Learned that Kang took his coffee black and his scotch neat. Learned that he slept poorly. waking at odd hours to work on his laptop or make phone calls in Korean that sounded like threats wrapped in silk. Learned that he healed fast, the wound already scabbing over, though I caught him gripping his side when he thought I wasn't looking, and I learned that he was brilliant, not just street smart or ruthlessly efficient, but genuinely, frighteningly intelligent. He approached the problem of finding his traitor like a chess master, moving pieces I couldn't see, anticipating moves 3 steps ahead. He had his people pull financial records, phone logs, security footage from a dozen locations. He cross-referenced meeting times with the coordinates from the phone. He built a web of connections and betrayals that made my head spin. I helped where I could. Turned out my memory for details honed by years of remembering complicated drink orders and which regular hated olives was useful for more than serving wine. I remembered fragments of the woman's phone screen, bits of conversation, the timing of when the shooters moved. Kang would ask me questions at random hours, testing my recall, pushing me to remember more. "The Shell Company," he said on the 3rd night, spreading documents across the dining table like tarot cards. "You said you saw a name on her phone. Try to remember." I closed my eyes, picturing that glowing screen. It started with an M. Maybe. Meridian? No, that's not right. Medina? Meridian. Wait, I frowned. Meridian Holdings. I remember thinking it sounded fake, like someone trying too hard to sound legitimate. Kang went still. Meridian Holdings. You know it? It's one of mine. His voice was flat. Or it's supposed to be. I have maybe a dozen shell companies for moving money. Meridian was supposed to be dormant. No activity for 6 months. He pulled up a screen, started typing. If someone's using it without my authorization. Numbers populated the screen. Transaction histories, wire transfers, dates and amounts that meant nothing to me but clearly meant everything to him. Son of a bitch. He breathed. What? Someone's been siphoning money. Small amounts, irregular intervals. Nothing big enough to trigger alerts. But over 6 months, he did the math. Almost 2 million. That's small. In my world? Yes. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. The movement pulled his shirt tight across his chest, and I tried very hard not to notice the way his muscles moved beneath the ink. Whoever's doing this is smart, patient. They've been planning this for months. Can you trace it? See where the money went? I can try. He worked through the night, and I stayed with him. Bringing coffee I learned to make the way he liked it. Asking questions when I thought they might help. Staying quiet when he needed to think. The penthouse felt smaller with just the 2 of us. The city lights beyond the windows our only company. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, he looked up from his laptop and found me watching him. What? He asked. Nothing. Just... I shrugged. I've never seen anyone work like you do. This is how you stay alive in my business. You outthink the competition, or you end up in a landfill. That's a cheery thought. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. You should sleep. So should you. I don't sleep much. I've noticed. We looked at each other across the table, and something shifted in the air between us. Not attraction, I refuse to call it that. But recognition, maybe. 2 people who'd been thrown together by violence and circumstance, learning to exist in the same space. 2 people who shouldn't trust each other but were starting to anyway. I found it, Kang said suddenly, his attention snapping back to the screen. The money. It's moving through a series of accounts, but they all trace back to... He went pale. No, it can't be. What? Who is it? He turned the laptop toward me, showing me a name I didn't recognize. This is the Final Destination account. It's registered to a holding company owned by my uncle. Your uncle is stealing from you? The general. His voice was hollow. That's what we call him. He's been with my organization since the beginning. He helped me build it. Taught me half of what I know. He closed the laptop slowly, like it might explode. I trusted him. Completely. I wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but I didn't know if he'd accept it or if touching him would shatter whatever fragile equilibrium we'd built. So I just sat there, watching him process the betrayal, watching the man who seemed unshakable finally crack. I'm sorry, I said quietly, Don't be. He stood, walked to the windows, his reflection ghostly in the glass. This is my world, Michelle. Everyone's loyal until they're not. Everyone's trustworthy until they find a better offer. He braced his hands against the window frame. I should have seen it coming. You can't predict betrayal. Not from someone you love. I don't love anyone. He said it like a fact, like a shield. Love is a liability. It makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable to exactly this kind of thing. I stood, moving to stand beside him at the window. Below us, Chicago slept, unaware of the small war about to erupt in its streets. Then why did you trust him? Because I had to trust someone. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something raw and bleeding beneath the armor, and look where that got me. We stood there in silence, two people who shouldn't be in the same room, shouldn't be on the same side, shouldn't be having this conversation. But the universe had other plans. What happens now? I asked. Now? Kang's smile was all teeth, no warmth. Now we set a trap, draw him out, and I make sure he understands the cost of betrayal. And me? He turned to face me fully, and I was suddenly aware of how close we were standing. Close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. Close enough to smell his cologne. Something expensive and smoky. Close enough to feel the heat radiating off him despite the cold glass at our backs. You, he said softly, are going to help me destroy him. The words should have terrified me. Maybe they did. But underneath the fear was something else. Something that felt dangerously like purpose. Like I'd spent my whole life being invisible, being overlooked, being just the help, and now someone was seeing me. Really seeing me. Not as a waitress or a problem or a witness to be eliminated, but as a weapon. Okay, I whispered. His hand came up, fingers brushing my cheek so lightly I might have imagined it. You're either very brave or very foolish. You said that before. I'm starting to think it's both. We stood there, suspended in a moment that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One step forward, and everything would change. One step back and maybe I could still salvage some version of my normal life. I didn't step back, neither did he. Get some sleep, Kang finally said, his voice rough. Tomorrow, we start planning, and I need you sharp. He moved away, the spell breaking, and I was left standing at the window alone, my heart hammering for reasons that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the way he'd looked at me like I mattered. I was in so much trouble, and the worst part? I didn't want out anymore. The banker's name was Thomas Chen, and according to Kang's intelligence, he was the one who'd been moving money through Meridian Holdings. He worked out of a private wealth management firm in the Loop, the kind of place where millionaires went to hide their money from the IRS and their ex-wives. We'd been planning the confrontation for 2 days. Kang had people watching Chen's movements, his schedule, his patterns. The plan was simple. Catch him leaving work, have a conversation in a neutral location, extract information, clean, professional, low risk. I should have known better. Stay in the car, Kang said as we pulled up to the warehouse district near Pilsen. It was 4 in the afternoon, the winter sun already fading, casting everything in shades of gray. The warehouse Chen supposedly used for private meetings loomed ahead, all broken windows and rusted metal siding. I'm not staying in the car, Mikkel. You might need backup. And I'm the only backup you've got right now. I checked the small pistol he'd given me 3 days ago, the weight of it still foreign in my hands despite the hours of practice. Besides, if this goes wrong, being in the car just makes me a sitting duck. He looked at me for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he nodded. Stay behind me. Don't shoot unless I tell you to. And if I say run, you run. Understood? Understood. We approached the warehouse together, Kang moving with the controlled precision of a predator, me trying very hard not to look like I was about to throw up from nerves. The door was unlocked. The first red flag. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of shipping containers and old crates, pools of water on the concrete floor reflecting the dying light from the broken skylights above. Our footsteps echoed. Too loud, too exposed. Chen! Kang called out, his voice bouncing off metal walls. We just want to talk. Silence. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, I'm afraid Mr. Chen couldn't make it. The voice was older, cultured, speaking English with a faint Korean accent that Kang clearly recognized because he went absolutely still beside me. Uncle, he said quietly. Hello, Min. A figure emerged from behind a shipping container, flanked by 4 men with guns. The general was in his 60s, silver-haired and elegant in a charcoal suit, looking more like a diplomat than a crime lord. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. The warehouse, Kang said, his hand moving toward his gun. This was you. All of it. Of course it was me. The restaurant, the money, all of it. The general smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. You've grown too ambitious, Min, too reckless. You're going to get us all killed. So you decided to kill me first. I decided to retire you. There's a difference. He gestured, and his men raised their weapons. I take no pleasure in this. Your family, but you've left me no choice. Kang's gun was already drawn, but we were outnumbered and outpositioned. 4 guns trained on us, and we were standing in the open like idiots. This wasn't a meeting. It was an execution. Run! Kang shoved me toward a stack of crates as the first shots rang out, but I didn't run. Not away, at least. I dove behind the crates, my heart slamming against my ribs, bullets chewing through wood and metal around me. Kang had taken cover behind a shipping container, returning fire, but we were pinned down, trapped. This was exactly what they wanted. My eyes darted around the warehouse, looking for something, anything that could help. And then I saw it. A fire alarm on the wall, 20 feet away, and next to it, a sprinkler system that looked old enough to be from the last century but might still work. It was stupid. Reckless. Exactly the kind of thing that would get me killed. I went for it anyway. I broke from cover, running low, zigzagging between crates as bullets sparked off concrete behind me. Someone shouted. Kang yelled my name. I didn't stop. My hand slammed into the fire alarm, and for one horrible second, nothing happened. Then the sprinklers erupted. Water cascaded from the ceiling in a deluge, instantly reducing visibility to near zero. The warehouse filled with the sound of rushing water and shouted confusion. I couldn't see Kang. Couldn't see the general or his men. Could barely see my own hands in front of my face, but I could hear them. Footsteps splashing through water. Voices calling out positions in Korean. The general barking orders. I pressed myself against the wall, gun raised, trying to control my breathing, trying not to become a target. Through the artificial rain, I saw shapes moving. Kang, flanking left, using the chaos to reposition. The general's men, disoriented, trying to find us in the downpour. Kang moved like a ghost. 3 shots, fired with surgical precision. 2 of the general's men went down. The 3rd dove for cover, and suddenly the odds were almost even. Enough! The general's voice cut through the chaos. Min, stop this. We can still end this civilly. Civilly? Kang's laugh was hollow. You tried to have me killed. Twice. That ship has sailed, Uncle. Then you'll die here. And the girl with you. I moved before I could think about it, circling through the maze of crates, trying to get an angle. My clothes were soaked, my hair plastered to my face, but the adrenaline kept me warm, kept me sharp. I found the 3rd gunman first. He was facing away, focused on where he thought Kang was. My hand shook as I raised the pistol, remembering everything Kang had taught me. Breathe. Aim. Squeeze. Don't pull. I shot him in the leg. He went down screaming, and I felt simultaneously proud and horrified. But it worked. His scream drew the 4th gunman's attention, and Kang took him out with a headshot that made me flinch. Then it was just the general, standing in the center of the warehouse, water streaming down his face, looking at his nephew with something like regret. I taught you too well, he said. You taught me to survive. Kang stepped into view, gun raised, his white shirt transparent from the water, tattoos visible beneath. You just didn't expect me to survive you. What now, Min? You kill me? Your own blood? You made that choice when you hired those men at the restaurant. Kang's voice was ice. You made that choice when you stole from me, when you decided I was expendable. The general sighed. I had hoped to spare you this, to make it quick, painless. A bullet in the back of the head, never knowing it was coming. A kindness. I don't want your kindness. Then what do you want? Answers. Kang gestured with his gun. On your knees. The general hesitated, pride warring with survival instinct. Then, slowly, he knelt in the pooling water, his expensive suit ruined, his dignity shattered. I emerged from my hiding spot, gun still raised, water dripping from every surface. The sprinklers finally shut off, leaving us in sudden, ringing silence. The warehouse looked like a disaster zone. Bodies, bullet holes. Enough evidence to put us away for life if anyone found it. Who else is involved? Kang demanded. Just me. And the people you just killed. I don't believe you. Believe what you want. It's the truth. The general looked up at his nephew, water running down his face like tears. I did this alone. I couldn't watch you destroy everything we built with your recklessness anymore, so you decided to destroy it yourself. I decided to save it. There's a difference. Kang's jaw clenched, his finger tightening on the trigger. For a moment, I thought he was going to do it. End it right there. But something held him back. History, maybe. Or the last shred of the man he used to be before betrayal hardened him into something else. You're going to tell me everything, Kang said quietly. Every account, every contact, every plan you had, and then you're going to disappear. Leave Chicago. Leave the country. And if I ever see you again, Uncle, I won't hesitate. The general smiled sadly. You're weak, Min. Just like your father. That's why this will never work. Maybe. But I'm the one holding the gun. We brought the general back to the penthouse in the trunk of Kang's car. Not dead, though I half expected him to be, but zip-tied and gagged and very much aware that his coup had failed. Kang's men would handle him, make sure he talked, make sure he gave up every piece of information before he was shipped off to whatever hole Kang decided to throw him in. I stood in the penthouse bathroom, staring at my reflection. My hair hung in wet ropes. My makeup, what little I'd been wearing, was streaked down my face. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the marble counter to steady them. I'd shot someone. Actually pulled the trigger and put a bullet in another human being. He'd lived, probably, but I'd done it. Crossed a line I'd never thought I'd cross. Michelle. Kang stood in the doorway, still soaked, still looking like some kind of avenging angel. He'd changed out of the wet shirt, but the tattoos on his chest and shoulders were fully visible now, intricate patterns that told stories I didn't know how to read. You should shower, he said. Get warm. I shot him. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I actually shot him. You saved my life. Again, that doesn't make it easier. No. He moved into the bathroom, standing close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off him. But it makes it necessary. In my world, you do what you have to do to survive. You did that today. I turned to face him, and suddenly the bathroom felt too small, the air too thick. We were standing so close I could count his eyelashes, see the scar on his collarbone, feel his breath on my face. I can't do this, I whispered. Do what? This. Any of this. I'm not cut out for your world, Kang. I'm a waitress. I pour wine and smile at customers and worry about making rent. I don't shoot people. My voice broke. I don't belong here. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so violent. You saved my life twice. You decrypted financial records. You created a distraction in a firefight that turned the whole thing in our favor. You shot a man who was about to kill me. His thumb traced my cheekbone. You belong here more than you think. Your uncle was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about one. His jaw clenched. I am toxic. Everyone around me ends up dead or damaged. You should go. Take the money, save your brother, and run as far from me as you can. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. Bullshit. The word came out harder than I intended. You don't get to decide what's good for me. You don't get to push me away because you're scared. I'm not scared. You're terrified. I stepped closer, eliminating what little space was left between us. You're terrified that caring about someone makes you vulnerable, that it makes you weak. But you know what? Maybe it does. Maybe caring about someone is the most dangerous thing you can do in your world. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. His eyes searched mine, looking for something. Permission. Maybe. Or forgiveness. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. My hands came up, fisting in his shirt. I'm saying I'm not going anywhere. I'm saying you don't get to protect me from yourself. I'm saying he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't tentative or questioning. It was desperate and angry and tasted like whiskey and violence and something that might have been salvation. His hands tangled in my wet hair, pulling me closer, and I kissed him back with everything I had, all the fear and adrenaline and confusion of the last week pouring into this one moment. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, the world reduced to this tiny bathroom and the space between heartbeats. This is a terrible idea, Kang murmured against my lips. The worst. I agreed. You're going to get hurt. Probably. I can't protect you from everything. I don't need you to. He pulled back just enough to look at me. Really look at me. And I saw something in his expression that made my chest tight. Not love, it was too soon for that. Too complicated. But possibility. Like maybe. Just maybe. We could both survive this. The general still has allies, he said quietly. People who'll want revenge. There's a gala in 3 days. Annual thing for the organization. Everyone will be there, including the people I need to send a message to. What kind of message? The kind that says anyone who sides with a traitor dies with them. His hand traced down my arm, leaving goosebumps in its wake. I need them to see that I'm still in control, that the coup failed, and I need them to see you, me, by my side. As my... He paused, choosing his word carefully. Partner, you want me to pretend to be your girlfriend at a Mafia party. I want you to be my equal at a gathering of criminals. There's a difference. His smile was sharp. Think you can handle it. I thought about the girl I'd been a week ago, serving wine and avoiding eye contact, trying to be invisible. I thought about the woman I'd become in the last 7 days, shooting people and decrypting financial crimes and kissing men who could end lives with a phone call. Teach me, I said. The next 3 days were a crash course in being someone I'd never imagined. Kang was a demanding teacher. He taught me how to stand, how to walk in heels that could double as weapons, how to hold a wine glass so it could be shattered into a makeshift blade if necessary. He taught me how to read a room, how to identify threats, how to smile at someone while mentally mapping their vulnerabilities. Keep your shoulders back, he instructed, watching me walk across the penthouse in stilettos that made my ankles wobble. You're not a waitress anymore. You're a queen. Act like it. Queens don't usually attend Mafia galas. In my world, they do. He brought in a stylist who looked at me like I was a particularly challenging project, a woman named Jin who taught me basic self-defense moves, a man called Park who showed me how to conceal a ceramic knife in my dress without it showing. They treated me with a mix of curiosity and respect, like they couldn't quite figure out who I was or why Kang had chosen me but knew better than to ask. The dress arrived the night before the gala. It was delivered in a garment bag that probably cost more than my car, and when I unzipped it, I actually gasped. It was midnight blue, almost black, with a neckline that plunged just low enough to be dangerous and a slit up the thigh that would make running possible if necessary. The fabric was some kind of silk that felt like water against my skin, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for me. Which, I realized, it had been. The stylist took your measurements while you were sleeping, Kang said from the doorway, watching me stare at my reflection. That's creepy. That's thorough. He moved into the room, and I saw he was already dressed for the gala, a black suit that looked like it cost more than a small country, his hair styled back, his tattoos just visible above his collar. He looked dangerous, powerful, like a king preparing for war. There's a pocket sewn into the inner thigh, he continued. All business. For the knife. The dress is reinforced along the seams in case you need to fight. And these... He held up a pair of earrings that glittered in the light. They have panic buttons. Press the pearl, and my security team will know you're in trouble. I took the earrings with trembling hands. You've thought of everything. I have to. The General's allies will be there tonight. They'll be looking for weakness, looking for an opening. His eyes met mine in the mirror. We can't give them one. What if I mess up? What if I say the wrong thing, or you won't? He stepped closer, his hands settling on my shoulders, warm through the silk. You're smart, Michelle. Smarter than most of the people who'll be in that room. You've survived in a world that tried to grind you down. This is just another performance. Another night of serving people who think they're better than you. Except this time, I might end up dead. This time, you're not alone. I leaned back against him, drawing strength from his solid presence, his absolute certainty. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. His lips brushed my temple. But don't let them see it. Tonight, you're not Michelle Cruz from the South Side. You're the woman who saved Kang Min Lee's life. You're the woman who brought down a traitor. You're untouchable. And what are you? The man who's going to burn down anyone who tries to prove otherwise. The Kang family estate was everything I'd imagined a crime lord's mansion would be, and nothing like it at the same time. It sprawled across acres of Lake Forest property, all modern architecture and floor-to-ceiling windows, looking more like a museum than a home. Inside, it was a study in controlled opulence art that was probably looted from museums, furniture that cost more than houses, and enough security to guard a small nation. The gala was in full swing when we arrived. Men in expensive suits mingled with women dripping in diamonds, everyone drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than my monthly rent used to be. A string quartet played in one corner. Servers and I felt a pang seeing them, remembering who I used to be circulated with trays of hors d'oeuvres. Every eye turned to us when we entered. Kang's hand was firm on the small of my back, guiding me through the crowd. People parted for us like we were royalty. Some nodded respectfully. Others whispered behind their hands. I kept my head high, my expression neutral, remembering everything he'd taught me. That's Park Ji-hoon, Kang murmured, indicating a man in his 50s with sharp eyes. He runs the gambling operations, loyal, but opportunistic. If he thinks I'm weak, he'll make a move. And the woman in red? Yoon Mei. She handles our tech operations, brilliant, ruthless, and has been waiting for an excuse to expand her territory. His hand tightened slightly on my back. Watch her. If anyone here is planning something, it's her. We made our circuit through the room, Kang introducing me with a possessiveness that should have bothered me but didn't. This is Michelle, he'd say, and something in his tone made it clear I wasn't just arm candy. I was his choice, his partner, and anyone who had a problem with that could take it up with him. I smiled and shook hands and made small talk, all while my heart hammered against my ribs. The knife pressed against my thigh was a cold reminder of what this really was. Not a party, a battlefield. And I was standing in the middle of it wearing silk and diamonds and pretending I belonged. You're doing well, Kang said quietly as we moved toward the balcony. Better than I expected. I'm going to throw up the second this is over. Make it through the next hour, and I'll hold your hair back myself. I laughed despite myself, and for a moment, it felt almost normal. Like we were just a couple at a party, not two people waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's when I saw him. The general stood near the bar, flanked by two men I didn't recognize. He looked different from the broken man we'd left zip-tied in the warehouse. He looked defiant, dangerous, like a man who had nothing left to lose. Our eyes met across the room. Kang saw him at the same moment I did. His entire body went rigid, his hand moving toward the gun I knew was hidden beneath his jacket. He wasn't supposed to be here, I whispered. No, he wasn't. The general smiled, raised his glass in a mock toast, and then disappeared through a side door. That's a trap, I said. I know. Kang's jaw was tight. Stay here. Stay with the crowd. You'll be safe. Absolutely not. We do this together. Michelle, together. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the war playing out behind his eyes. The desire to protect me, battling with the knowledge that I was right. We were stronger together than apart. Fine, he finally said. but you follow my lead. And if I tell you to run, I know. I run. We moved through the crowd, slipping out the same door the general had used. It led to a hallway, then to what looked like a private study. The door was ajar, light spilling out, and I could hear voices inside. Kang went in first, gun drawn, and I followed close behind. The general stood behind a massive desk, the two men flanking him with weapons already drawn. But it was the fourth person in the room that made my blood run cold. Chen, the banker, the one who was supposed to be our leverage. He stood next to the general, very much alive, very much not on our side. "Hello, Min," the general said pleasantly. "I was hoping you'd follow me. You always were predictable when it came to matters of pride. This ends tonight, Uncle." "Oh, it does. Just not the way you think." He gestured, and Chen moved, grabbing me before I could react. His arm locked around my throat, a gun pressed to my temple. Kang's weapon immediately swung toward them. "Let her go." "I don't think so. She's the only leverage I have left." The general's smile was sad. "Did you really think I'd roll over? That I'd just accept exile and disappear quietly? I gave you a chance. More than you deserved. You gave me nothing. Everything I built, everything I sacrificed, you were going to throw it all away for what? For her?" He looked at me with something like pity. "She's a waitress, Min. A nobody. And you're willing to destroy your organization for her. She's worth 10 of you," Kang said quietly. The words hit me like a physical blow. Worth. He thought I was worth something. Worth protecting. Worth fighting for. Chen's grip tightened on my throat, cutting off air. "Drop the gun, or I kill her." Kang hesitated, the weapon wavering, and I remembered everything he'd taught me. The knife. The moves Jin had drilled into me. The vulnerable points on the human body, the element of surprise. I went limp in Chen's arms. Dead weight, throwing him off balance. His grip loosened for just a second, and I drove my elbow back into his ribs, twisted, and pulled the ceramic knife from the hidden pocket in my dress. The blade was in his thigh before he could react. He screamed, his gun clattering to the floor, and I dove out of the way as Kang opened fire. The general's men went down. Chen collapsed, clutching his leg, and the general himself just stood there, staring at his nephew with something that might have been pride. "You chose well," he said softly. "She's stronger than I thought." "It's over," Kang said, his gun trained on his uncle's chest. "Is it?" The general smiled. "You can kill me, Min, but there'll always be more. More traitors, more enemies, more people who want what you have. You can't protect her from all of them. Eventually, they'll get to her. And when they do, it will destroy you, maybe. But not tonight." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. The general fell, a red stain spreading across his pristine suit. And for a moment, the room was absolutely silent. Then Kang's security team burst through the door, weapons drawn, and everything became controlled chaos. I stood there, knife still in my hand, blood on my dress, watching Kang stare down at the man who'd raised him, who'd betrayed him, who'd forced him to make an impossible choice. He looked hollow, broken. Then he looked at me, and something in his expression shifted. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Are you?" "No." We stared at each other over his uncle's body. Two people who'd survived the unsurvivable, who'd crossed lines neither of us could uncross. "We should go," one of the security team said. "The guests are asking questions." Kang nodded, slipping his gun back into its holster. Then he held out his hand to me. Together, I took it. Together. The penthouse felt different when we returned in the early hours of the morning. The same furniture, the same view, but everything had changed. We'd left as conspirators and returned as something else. Partners, survivors, maybe more. I stood at the windows, still wearing the blood-stained dress, watching the sun start to paint the horizon pink and gold. Behind me, I heard Kang pouring drinks, the clink of crystal on marble. "Your brother's debt is cleared," he said quietly. "I had my people pay it off last night, before the gala. He's safe." I closed my eyes, relief washing over me so strongly it made my knees weak. "Thank you." "And this," he pressed something into my hand, A plane ticket. First class to anywhere you want to go. New identity. New life. Enough money to start over, to be whoever you want to be. I looked down at the ticket, at the promise of escape, of freedom, of returning to some version of normal. Then I looked at Kang. At the man who'd taught me how to be strong, how to fight, how to survive in a world that had tried to destroy us both. At the man who'd kissed me like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to this earth. At the man who was offering me an out, even though I could see in his eyes that he didn't want me to take it. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to be safe, to be happy, to have the life you deserve." "That's not what I asked." "What do you want, Kang?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I want you to stay. I want you by my side. I want—" His voice cracked, just slightly. "I want to be selfish and keep you here even though I know it's dangerous. Even though I know you deserve better." I walked to the fireplace, the ticket held loosely in my fingers. The flames from earlier in the evening had died down to embers, but they were hot enough. I held the ticket over the fire and let it go. It caught immediately, the edges curling, the promise of escape turning to ash. "I don't want better," I said, watching it burn. "I want this. I want you. I want to be the woman who stands beside you and faces down the monsters." I turned to face him. "I want to stop being invisible. And with you, I'm not." Kang crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His hands cupped my face, his thumbs wiping away tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. "You're sure?" he murmured against my lips. "I've never been more sure of anything. It won't be easy. There will be more enemies, more threats, more nights like tonight. I know, you might die. I might have died serving wine. At least this way I die doing something that matters." He laughed, the sound rough and beautiful, and pulled me closer. "Then welcome to the family business, Michelle Cruz." The sun rose over Chicago, painting the penthouse in shades of gold.